So we are in Causal Inference and Statistics, which is a book that looks like this. We are in Chapter 1, and we are on question 1.4.1. Oh, there really shouldn't be an A there, should there? Let me fix that. Okay, so section 1.4 in the book is discussing graphs, just kind of a basic introduction to graphs, and so hopefully you have read that or will read that. But this question looks at the graph that's shown here, figure 1.8, which I've reproduced, or I shouldn't say reproduced, I copied and pasted it here. And it asks about different relationships in this graph. And so these are just basic relationships. So let's go through it. The answers are all down here, and I might scroll down there, but I think that I'll just stick right here for now. So if you want the answers, you can go to the Colab sheet, and so there should be a link in the description. Okay, so the first two, A and B, want us to find the ancestors, that's B, of this variable here, Z, as well as the parents of Z. Okay, and so these are related questions. So, so parents are a subset of ancestors, okay, and parents are the other variables that directly project to the variable. Okay, so for instance, W directly projects to Z, and so W is a parent. X finds its way eventually to Z through X to W, then W to Z, but it doesn't directly project there. Therefore, X is an ancestor. So both W and X are ancestors, but only W is a parent. Okay. So I think when we look through this, if I haven't miscounted anything, the parents are Y and W, and then the ancestors are Y, W, as well as X. Okay. All right, so now we have C and D, and we have a similar relationship, but now instead of looking at parents and ancestors, we are looking at children and descendants, and we are looking at W instead of Z. Okay, so again, all children are descendants, but not all descendants are children. Okay, so children are variables that are projected to directly from another variable. So in this case, for instance, Z is a child of W. Okay, but well, how do I want to say that? Yeah, so Z is a child of W, and X is a descendant of, I'm sorry, Z is a descendant of X, but Z is not a child of X. It's like a grandchild if we're to take this analogy really seriously, okay? So, so again, we're looking at W, and we're looking at children and descendants of W, okay? So for W, the children, the things that it directly projects to are Y and Z. Now it also has a distant descendant in T, right? Because W projects to Y and Y projects to T, and W also projects to Z and Z projects to T. Okay, so that's C and D. All right. And now we have E and F, and so we want to draw all paths, simple paths, and I think that they're defining simple by we can't use the same variable more than once, from X to T, and then all directed paths from X to T. So of course the directed paths are going to be a subset of all paths. Okay, and so I've listed all of the paths out here. Okay, and then if you look at this, you'll notice that the directed paths are just a subset of all paths here. Okay, but let's just carve out a few of these paths instead of going through all of them. Okay, so let's first look at let's look at a couple basic ones. Okay, so here's a simple path. So I have X, Y, T. There's a simple path. Now this path is also a directed path because at each step we are going with the arrows. We're going X to Y and Y to T, and that's also the direction of the arrows. Okay, so another simple path would be X to Y to Z to T. So there's a simple path. And it's also, again, a directed path, right? Because I'm going in line with the arrows. X goes to Y, Y goes to Z, Z goes to T. All right. Well, so we could just continue all that, and like I said, you can find all of the paths here if you scroll down on the Colab sheet. But now let's look at a simple path that is not a directed path. Okay. So if I go from X to W to Z to Y to T, okay, that is not a directed path, right? And it's because when I go from Z to Y, whereas the arrow goes from Y to Z, I am traversing Z to Y, so I'm going against the direction of the arrow. Okay, so that's still a path. I get from X to W to Z to Y to T. That gets me to T, but in one of those jumps that I'm making, I am going against the grain of the arrow, and so that makes the entire path undirected. Okay, and so like I said, you can see the full menu down here. Okay, we'll call that good.